Hi, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Vikings Now. Jim Rich along with Pierre, Noujaim, Ahmad Hicks. We don't know. Thought he was here. Maybe he took that late flight to London, is over there right now with, fish and chips?
It's a great place to sightsee.
Yeah, no, there's plenty to do there.
Great place to sightsee.
Your Minnesota Vikings now 5-0, but a critical, maybe problematic trend has developed. Second half issues. Big leads right out of the gate, second week in a row. That's the headline right now. We're 5-0, so we're going to complain about something, right?
Yeah.
What is your level of concern?
Well,
where is this, on a 5, a 9, a 2?
I'd put it at about a 4.5, like a 4 or 5. I'd say. But there is something to this, but I think on the flip side of that, I think the conversation can also be had of, you still win a football game when you didn't play your best football. And certainly the Vikings didn't play their best football in the second half of the Packer game last week. Didn't really look all that great outside of the first quarter today, but they still find a way to get the job done. That has to count for something. However, one thing we need to point out is this Vikings offense has only scored 19 points in their last 6 quarters. That is a trend that I'm starting to get a little shaky about. Sam Darnold obviously didn't have his best day. Aaron Jones left the game with injury. Who knows how long he might be out for. Thank goodness the Vikings have a bye week coming up to at least get him healed up, so hopefully Aaron Jones won't have to miss any time. But 19 points in 6 quarters, Jim. I mean, that's not going to cut it in the NFL.
No. Update from Pro Football Talk. They said about Aaron Jones that it doesn't seem serious, should be back after the bye. But he's had trouble with injuries and staying on the field. I don't remember the last time he played a complete season. So the Vikings have got to be leery of his workload. But as I've said from the start of the season, he is the most valuable part of that offense. Not Justin Jefferson, not Sam Darnold. He is the guy, because you saw they really couldn't run the ball much after Ty Chandler took over. He rushed 14 times for 30 yards. Not too good at math, so that's
under 3 yards a carry.
That's 2.1.
Under 3 yards a carry as a team today.
Oh, yeah,
yes. Certainly, and Ty Chandler as well, but as a team overall, yes, under 3 yards a carry. That's not what you want to see. That looks like the 2023 Vikings as opposed to the 2024 Vikings. And you heard Kevin O'Connell after a post-game speech. I can't remember if it was the last game or the previous game, but in the locker room, turned to Aaron Jones and said, he's changed our team. He's changed our team dramatically, and he absolutely has done just that. So it's no coincidence that when he comes out of the lineup, suddenly this offense doesn't look as sharp as we've grown accustomed to seeing it through the first 5, I guess I should really say 4.5, 3.5, 4 games of the season outside of a few quarters.
And you have to give credit to the Jets defense. They are
no doubt.
Good.
Yes.
They are very good, and that's the only reason the Jets really are still rumbling around and have a shot at their division title is because of that defense. Gardner and Reed on the back end, they are very good.
Quentin Williams up front is just about as good as it gets on the defensive line in the NFL.
Right. It's not Aaron Rodgers. Now, okay, what about Rodgers? Let's talk about him. 54 pass attempts today.
Yeah.
I think they ran the ball once today in that second half. Is Rodgers done, or is he hurt right now?
No, I don't think Rodgers is done. Remember, he got kind of rolled up on the knee. We thought maybe
against Denver.
Yeah, and he got rolled up again, again today when he had to kind of hobble off to the sideline. He did come back into the game, so he was playing with a little bit of an injured knee. He did finish the game. But to answer your question, no, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is done at all. What I'm confused about with the New York Jets is, are we sure Breece Hall is the number 1 running back in that backfield anymore? Are we sure? I'm not sure that's the case, and that would be very befuddling to me, because Breece Hall, with the production that you saw from him, especially last season with the way the Jets ended the season, and you thought Breece Hall was going to be this home run hitter, game in and game out. Braylon Allen is getting in there on first and second down. Braylon Allen is getting involved in the short passing game as well. It looks like an even 50-50 split, if not, especially with today's game, lean more towards Braylon Allen over Breece Hall. And I don't really fully understand that. Nothing to take away from Braylon Allen. He's a talented back. There's no doubt about it. But I'm confused as to why the Jets are not using Breece Hall the way we thought they would use him going into this season. I'm confused by that.
Yeah, and they didn't try to, well, they tried to run the ball in the first half, and the Vikings defense just said absolutely not. They could get nothing going. So that's why I said the second half, I think there was only one running play the entire time. They put it all in Rodgers, and then the rush was getting home, so it was all these dink and dunks, quick, get rid of it right away.
Yeah.
And that basically became an extension of the running game today for the Jets because Rodgers couldn't avoid the rush as the game went on, and they couldn't run the ball. So they knew they had to do something, and that's how they were able to get back into it in that second half.
Yeah, and the Vikings, if I'm not mistaken, going into the game, I believe the Vikings were second in the league against the run. So, last against the pass. But that's kind of, they played with a big lead. Teams were forced to throw against them. So that stat might be a little overinflated. But the Vikings are very stout against the run, and they were so again today. So, yeah, to your point, I understand that, the Jets got behind 17-0 early, maybe have to abandon the game plan a little bit. But 17-0 in the second quarter is not insurmountable. You don't have to completely abandon the run at that point. But, this is the Jets.
They were getting the same results, so they averaged 2.6 on the day.
That's the Jets' problem. That's not the Vikings' problem.
Yes, this is not Jets Now, by the way. This is Vikings Now. By the way, your comments, we read them all the time. Fire them at the bottom of the screen. Let us know what you think. If you think this Vikings team can continue this, or if you're now seeing some things that are concerning you. Let's go back to Sam Darnold and his day. It was probably his most ineffective day as a Viking quarterback. 14 of 31, under 180 yards, one interception, no touchdowns for the man that led the NFL in touchdown passes coming into today's game.
And he also got knocked out of the game for a play today. Took a big shot in the midsection, had to leave for one play. Nick Mullins came in. Nick Mullins provided a perfect passer rating on the day. Good for Nick Mullins with his one opportunity.
That was a smart, calculated play by O'Connell.
Yeah.
Because everybody thinks, okay, the backup's in. What are they going to do?
Yeah.
Hand it off.
Yeah.
Boom, let's get out, throw an easy throw for him. And
Aaron Jones came down with it. That was, I think.
And that may have been when Jones got hurt, too.
I think that was the last play we saw Jones partake in the game before leaving with injury. If I'm not mistaken, I have to go back and look at the film.
Or you could tell us in the comments.
Yeah, please tell us so after the fact. I mean, it's not like I'm doing 50 million things on an NFL Sunday around here. But Sam Darnold,
But you're taking time to talk to the people.
I am.
Very kind of you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you all again, Sunday after Sunday. But in terms of Sam Darnold, this is kind of what we thought we might see going into the season. 1 week it's good, 1 week it's bad. Now, granted, this is the only week that we've seen that it's bad. It's been very consistent through the first 4 games. And like you mentioned, the Jets defense, very good quality unit. Nothing to sneeze at all. I think it's, he never really looked like he was in a rhythm today, right? I mean, He never really, Jordan Addison wasn't really getting involved in the game. Justin Jefferson had a pretty decent game, but Sam Darnold never really looked fully comfortable. Was sacked a number of times, I believe 4 times, if I'm not, 3 or 4. Never really looked fully comfortable out there. And credit to Robert Saleh and the Jets coaching staff really for making him look uncomfortable. They certainly deserve a lot of credit in that regard. But this is one of those games from Sam Darnold where I think as a Vikings fan, it's kind of like you touch the stove. It's like, hey, no, we're all good. And then suddenly at the first hint of heat, you want to recoil, and you're like, I don't know, is this a trend? Is it going to be, are we going to be up and down now for the rest of it? Have people figured out Sam Darnold? I understand the thought process of the fans and why they might think that, but I chalk it up to one bad game. I think it was just one bad game. I'm not overly concerned. It's something that I am monitoring, but I'm not currently losing any sleep over it as of right now.
Yeah, well, I think the Jets wanted the Vikings to have the ball in Darnold's hands.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I think by taking Jones out of the picture, this is why Jones is the MVP, because he rushes the ball. In the previous 4 games, he was getting 5.5, 6, 7 yards per carry. So all of a sudden, it's second down and manageable. It's not a situation where, like today, there were a lot of second and longs, a lot of third and longs that Darnold had to navigate. So before, Darnold could throw at his will.
Right.
It wasn't like, oh my goodness, it's all on me right now. Kind of like it was last year with Kirk Cousins. It was all on him. The Vikings offense wasn't going anywhere if Cousins wasn't having a day.
Yeah.
And to this point, Darnold didn't have to be the man. It was just there for the taking because they'd soften up their opponents with the run. And it also seemed like the Jets were bound and determined not to let Justin Jefferson have an easy day. They took how many pass interference penalties? They would rather, it seemed like, have a pass interference than a completion to Jefferson.
Well, it's hard to blame him. I mean, Jefferson was held to under 100 yards, but the catches that he made were certainly impactful. Chunk plays, 25-yard game. Remember when the Jets closed it to 3 on the ensuing drive when Minnesota responded? First play, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if it was the first play, but in that drive early on, big pass play to Justin Jefferson and move the chains and kind of let yourself breathe easy a little bit more because now you're in Jets territory and now you're on the move trying to put yourself up at least 6, if not 10 again to really try to put the game away. So the opportunities were there for Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison, not really, like we said, fully involved. Had a big catch in the third quarter, but didn't hear much from him after that. And we had a chance to speak with Pete Burstich after the game. You'll hear that coming up on Vikings postgame tonight. When he mentioned it, and I had the same thought as well, boy, this would have been a nice game to have TJ Hawkinson and, a kind of a sloppy, get through the slog kind of game. It started to rain out there in London. TJ Hawkinson not playing today. We'll see if he comes back after the bye week. That certainly would be a welcome addition.
Well, they opened up his practice window, I believe, on Friday.
Yep, they did.
And you have 21 days to activate him.
Correct.
And so more than likely he is on track for that Lions game.
Certainly the bye absolutely helps in terms of a timeline, getting him physically ready to go. I'm sure he will be in practice again when the Vikings return from the bye leading into that week against the Lions. So hopefully everything is on pace for TJ Hawkinson to play because the Vikings offense certainly could need somebody like that, another dimension that you can add into that offense.
Now, earlier in the season, the Vikings were playing some pretty clean football.
Yeah.
But today, the flags were coming out. Now, I don't know if it was this crew. I haven't, they have that now where you can look up and see how many calls that this crew.
Well, it wasn't the Hockey League crew,
out.
so I know. I know. And the moment Sean Hockey steps onto the field, I know we're going to see a lot of flags in the NFL in that game.
Right. Well, we saw a lot today. 19 penalties at all. Vikings pick up 11 of those for 80 yards. And the one that should not have been, at least not a 15-yarder, was the roughing the punter.
Yeah.
That was
a tough call.
That was terrible, especially to give them a first down, let them generate the drive.
Yeah.
And
drive resulted in points after that. A field goal for the Jets and closed to within 7. I mean, the Vikings could have gotten the ball back. Who knows? They could have got the ball back and scored, put distance between them. Yeah, that was a big call in the game. You're absolutely right, Jim. Big call in that game.
He's on the ground. Okay, the guy basically stepped on him. It is not going to hurt the kicker. Okay, this is football. It's not like the game they play over there. Well, we won't even go there. But anyways, it was a soft call.
Seemed like it.
And it put him in a tough spot.
But yeah, 11 penalties on the day for the Vikings. That's not winning football, and I'm sure Kevin O'Connell will address that with his team going forward. But the things that stood out to me today, Jim, and I sound like a broken record here on this podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
A broken record. Complimentary football. Ty Chandler takes a pitch from Sam Darnold and loses sight of the ball for some reason. It goes right off his hands and his face mask, fumbles the ball into Vikings territory. Jets take over with a chance to really kind of do something with that possession. 3 plays later, Andrew Van Ginkel picks it off, runs back the other way for an interception, return for a touchdown. Later in the game, Jets going for it on a 4th and short. Vikings defense rises to the occasion, no gain. Vikings take over. They put together an 8-play drive that resulted in a C.J. Ham touchdown. That's winning football. That's complimentary football. That's your defense picking you up. That's your offense rewarding you for a big defensive stop. So it's and again, when the Jets made it 20-17, you're starting to think, uh-oh. Are things going to go sideways here in the fourth quarter? Are the Jets picking up steam and momentum? And is the script going to flip here on the Vikings? And it results in a drive where everybody says, calm down. We're going to get this taken care of. The Justin Jefferson play that results in a 25-yard gain. The Vikings move the ball downfield. Didn't get in the end zone, but they do get 3 crucial points to force the Jets to go the length of the field to try to take the lead late in the game, which did not happen. So And a similar thing happened in the 49er game.
Yeah.
When the Niners close to within 6, the Vikings then had a big answer on the following drive, scored, and really put the game away at that San Francisco game. Those are telling things to me.
Oh, yeah.
Those are telling things to me, a sign of a team that does not blink and a sign of a team that can close out games.
Yeah. The confidence level is very high with this club right now. Whether it's going on a late drive, like you said, or the defense stepping up and having either aid to get a stop or even more impressive, get a turnover. But you have to talk about Andrew Van Ginkel, how he does this. I mean, it is crazy how he can sit in the weeds, read these quarterbacks, disengage from the rush, because at first you see he takes a couple steps like he's coming, and then all of a sudden he just kind of slinks down and then spears up there, and whatever gloves he has, they are incredible because nothing gets through there. And then for him to go, 63 yards?
63 yards.
That was dang impressive.
Yeah, and I think it's good karma for Andrew Van Ginkel. He was out in the community handing out coats, winter coats to needy kids earlier this week. So good off the field, good on the field. He has been a revelation here through the first 5 games here, Jim. He did this kind of thing in Miami. He also had a pick 6 in that game against Washington last year when Miami was in Washington. Same deal. A guy who can come off the edge, really get after the quarterback. He has been, at first I will admit, I will fully admit this here. When he was signed here to Minnesota, he was signed for $10 million a year, 2 year, $20 million. I said, $10 million might be a little rich for me. For Andrew Van Ginkel, I might put it at 8. Now it looks like a bargain. It looks like a bargain and a half. That's what it looks like here for Andrew Van Ginkel. I mean, if he keeps playing like this, he's going to put himself in line for a massive contract extension, either here or after next year if he hits free agency. If the Vikings are crazy enough to let him hit free agency at this point, a big payday elsewhere right now, because he is playing really difference-making football for this team.
Yeah, and you look at the money the Vikings will have after next season because of the moves they've made. They're going to have a ton of cash, so maybe that'll be one of their targets when
Not
the
unless they pay
flips.
your boy Sam Darnold, though.
Well, all right, so what do you think now? What do you think now? That was my thought was after week 2 I came up with this, and now you're seeing the national media starting to say, hey, Vikings, they got a problem here. What do they do with Darnold?
Well,
so does today pour a bucket of ice water on that contract? Or does this allow the Vikings and their management team to go, hey, you weren't very good today. We're probably not thinking you're going to be very good in the long haul. So how about taking some cash from us and let us control your future?
Well, let me be the first to admit that Jim is the trendsetter around here at Fox 9, and I would say,
I saw Stephen A. Smith's comments in
you did?
podcast. Yeah, so that he took that.
You did? Oh, you did? I was like, I would say, in my opinion, if I'm in the front office for the Vikings, I'm staying the course. And what I mean by that is I don't have to do anything right now. This game didn't necessarily sway me one way or the other in terms of possibly signing Darnold to an extension. I'm staying the course right now. I don't have to do anything. We're sitting here at 5-0. I'm focused on this season. Of course, you would love for him, if he continues to play well, you don't want to let him walk away for nothing.
Right, but you have to do something.
Yeah.
And the farther the clock ticks and he continues to pile up, the
price
October
goes up.
Player of the Month, November Player of the Month,
the price will
December
go up
Player
if he keeps
of the Month.
playing well. The price will go up. And yes, you put yourself in a pickle here. But, thankfully, I'm not Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, and I don't have to make these decisions.
Because you like to gamble. You like to play the odds. So wouldn't you say putting money on the table now for benefits later, especially because the Vikings have only 3 draft choices right now for next season's draft. So you make this move at Darnold, and even if you know in your mind already, we're done with him after this year, but you've put all this effort into him. You have made this a reclamation project. You restored your 62 Chevy, and then you just go and push it out on the street with the keys in it?
This is such a hard question. It really is. This is such a hard question because I mean,
I
obviously,
know if Ahmad was here, he'd be saying, yeah, you're crazy.
Well, obviously you have J.J. McCarthy waiting in the wings next year, and hopefully he's healthy enough to come back, which everybody's expecting him to be healthy enough to come back. But the reality is like you don't know what you have with J.J. McCarthy yet, because he could look great in the preseason all he wants, but when it really counts on Sunday starting in September, that's when I want to see if it really counts. So you don't. That's the hard part. You don't know that. Nick Mullins' contract, I believe Nick Mullins is still under contract through next year, if I'm not mistaken. I would have to double check that. But in terms of, my gut feeling is, if you're really putting me on the spot here, my gut feeling is I'm not going to re-sign Sam Darnold. I'm not going to do it, because if again, the way the NFL is built and rosters are built now, if you can hit a home run in the draft on a quarterback and free that money up to piece together the roster to build around that rookie quarterback, that seems to be the recipe for winning. Now, I know everybody's going to say, well, what about Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady took a discount?
Right.
Like, these are outliers. I get it. But, I look at a team like Seattle a decade ago, more than a decade ago, when they had Russell Wilson. I mean, this was a team that contended for Super Bowls when Russell Wilson was on a rookie contract. I'm not saying that J.J. McCarthy is going to be Russell Wilson from 10 years ago, but if he is, you don't really have to tie yourself to Sam Darnold now.
I'm not saying we're tying him. We're not going to give him $50 million. Or my thought was, you give him a mid-range contract that's basically 2 years with an option.
But is he going to want to take that, especially if he plays well?
Well, that's why I'm saying you step up and do it now before his ego gets huge, and then he's going, I'm going out on the market. And then you're like, okay.
Well, I think the question then turns into...
So I'm using this as J.J. McCarthy's my quarterback moving forward.
I think the question turns into, and this is the question that's going to have to be posed to Sam, are you willing to gamble on yourself? Are you gambling on yourself, thinking that you can ride out the season playing at a high level for a bigger payday at the end of the year and bypass an offer that might come your way midway through the season?
He's still young, too.
Yeah, he's still young. He's still got plenty of good football left in front of him, I'm sure. But do you want to gamble and take the big payday at the end of the year and say no to an extension midway through this season? Or do you want to say, if somebody flashes a 2-year, $50 million extension in front of you, and you say to yourself, I better cash out now, because you never know what's going to happen in the NFL. I think I've got every answer in my brain. I don't have an answer for you on this one. This is a tough one. That's a tough one.
You guys chime in the comments. Let us know. Sign Darnold, use him as a chip to trade in the offseason, or if McCarthy for some reason isn't ready, not that we have any inside information on that, but if they think he's not ready, then you have Darnold ready to go again for year 2 with him.
And you let it ride it out. And let it ride out the season and see how things play out.
Right. So that's the decision the Vikings have to make. All right, the bye. We're only 5 weeks in. To me, it seems early for a team to have the bye at this point. But coming back from London, it's kind of a good thing, so the Vikings can have this opportunity. I know Coach Kevin O'Connell was asked about taking the bye now, and you remember last time, 2 years ago when they went overseas, they did not take the bye after their trip. They jumped right back into play. They did the trip super quick so their body clocks would stay here in the central time zone, and then got right back in it, played okay the next week. This time he was asked that question and he said, well, we weren't really given the option. So with them taking the bye now, it sets up for a long second half of the season.
It does, and to be honest, I know we live in a world of analytics now, so momentum, as much as people like to think it's a thing, I don't know how much it really is a thing, but there is a piece of me that does feel like it's got some merit. If I'm starting a season 5-0, if I'm a player on the Vikings right now, I don't want to take a break.
Right.
I want to go right back to work next week. Let's keep this thing going. While the iron's hot, you got to strike. And to have a bye right now, I don't love it. I don't love it. It doesn't really sit well with me. But, of course, the Vikings don't make the schedule. But, I don't love that the fact that the Vikings have a bye next week. No. I'm not excited about that at all. I worry that slows momentum. I worry that takes you out of a rhythm. sometimes the first game back out of a bye, you're kind of finding your way through the first quarter, maybe even the first half. It's a big game coming in in week 7. It would be with Detroit coming in, and who knows, with the way Detroit's playing, that game could be for first place.
Yep. And the Vikings have lived off their fast starts.
Yeah.
Right? Every week they jump out right away. That first quarter, I think they've outscored opponents 38-3 now, I think is what the total is.
Still have only trailed, 4 minutes total in the season?
Less than 4 minutes of the entire season. So if you're looking at this club, what do you feel needs to be addressed moving forward? Now, you got a week. This is when the coaches can tinker. Mm-hmm. This is when they could change coverages. They could change the way they rush. Dalton Reisner more than likely could be back. His window has not been opened yet from the injured, but Connell says he's close, so he could join Hawkinson coming back. Do you change the offense? Do you not like what you've seen there? You said now that these, 19 points in the last 6 quarters.
Yeah.
What do they do to address that? How do they get more production out of that offense in your mind?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, health is the obvious thing when you're going into the bye. You want to make sure that Aaron Jones is healthy. You want to make sure that TJ Hawkinson is healthy and able to come back. Ivan Pace just came back after missing the last 2 games. Jordan Addison was dinged up earlier in the season. So I think in that regard, the bye comes at a good time. But yeah, offensively, I think Kevin O'Connell, probably on the plane ride home from London, is going to be looking at a lot of game tape, not from just this game, but the game previously, just that second half against Green Bay. And he's got to be thinking to himself, we can move the ball, sure, but I mean, we got to finish drives better.
Well, when they're in the red zone, they do.
Yeah, yes.
Right? They're one of the best at finishing those drives off.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But, in regards to, the defense has carried them. The defense has carried them this season, given them opportunity. We saw last week in the second half, Sam Darnold threw an errant pass into the end zone that was picked off by the Packers. And if that would have resulted in a touchdown for the Vikings, it would have been lights out for Green Bay. There would have been no comeback in that game. So I think it's taking advantage of your opportunities, not necessarily simplifying the offense, but putting Sam Darnold in a position again to be successful, and he's done that so far. So I think steady is the course right now for the Vikings. The offense does, I think, need a little bit of a jolt. Yeah, I think it needs a little bit of a jolt. Maybe TJ Hawkinson could be the guy to give them that jolt. We'll see if he's able to come back.
Well, I think that's the key, is that short-range passing game. That's not there. It seemed like today it was all going deep. Mm-hmm. They had the long bomb to Addison that was on a short 3rd and something. You know? And how many times Viking fans sit there, go deep, go deep. You have Jefferson, you have Addison. And that's maybe where Hawkinson is the missing piece right now. Somebody that could settle and just over the line of scrimmage, you get 5, 6, 7, 8 yards right there.
Safety blanket.
Or more of the out of the backfield stuff. We didn't see hardly any of that today. And maybe that's because Aaron Jones was gone. But we're really nitpicking, right?
Yeah,
we're 5-0.
Yeah.
5-0. They're 5 games over 500 right now. You play 500 football the rest of the way, you win the division.
I think I would agree. Yes, I would agree with that. I mean, obviously, if you don't want to lose twice to the Lions or the Packers in that regard, but you can't lose twice to the Packers now. You're going to beat them once.
Correct.
But, 5-0 is great. There's a lot of football left. I cannot sit here and feel comfortable. If you miss the playoffs, it's an absolute disaster at this point. It's a disaster if you miss the playoffs. But I'm not. You should not be resting on your laurels at this point. I know this coaching staff will not let these players do that. And I think the players are smart enough to know as well that we've got a long season ahead of us, and we haven't proven anything. All we've proven is that we can win football games in the clutch. That's a good trait to have. And all we've proven so far is that we're 5-0. That's it. That's a great start. Want to keep it going. A lot of football left to be played, though.
Yeah, the last time the Vikings were 5-0, Mike Zimmer came out with the Fat Cats Get Slaughtered. Mm-hmm. And apparently
he was on to something.
Urban legend was that there were like stuffed animals that were slaughtered in the locker room when the guys came in to drive the message home visually. And that season went the other way. They ended up getting slaughtered.
Yeah.
So
they finished 8-8 that season? I think they finished 8-8 that season.
Yeah, I think it was like 2016. They ended up started out 5-0, 6-0, and boom, blew apart. So hopefully that does not happen to this group. I think there's too many pieces here that it can't. Injuries, as you always say, can jump up and bite you and really change the complex of your season. And obviously, if Darnold didn't return to that game, you're right back to Nick Mullins, and then you're trying to figure it all out again.
Right.
And so, they've got to obviously be wary of that. But taking injuries out of the equation, if they keep the people that they have on the field right now, the talent that they possess, I don't see this group going on a massive losing streak.
I don't either. And they say, good teams, I should say probably great teams, don't lose 2 in a row. Even if you have a setback, you come back, you find a way to correct it, you win the next week. You don't allow yourself to get on a losing streak. And, the schedule is going to get a little bit tougher. But, I mean, the schedule so far, going into the season, remember when everybody was thinking that they would be 1-7 through 8 games?
Yeah.
Well, we're 5-0 right now. So, wins against playoff caliber teams: San Francisco, Houston, Green Bay,
and even the Jets. A lot of people thought they should be there.
Jets could still be a playoff team by the end of the year. I'm not ready to close the book on the Jets just yet, but listen, it's great. I feel like people want to get more out of me. I feel like you're trying to get more out of me. I was like, no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to do that yet. We are where we're at right now. You are what your record says you are, a la Bill Parcells. So 5-0, it's a great thing. A lot of football left to be played.
All right, he's Pierre Noujaim. Where do we find you on X?
You can find me at the Nouj, Fox9, Nouj.
How about Instagram? That's always a good follow.
You can find me on Instagram as well, _Nouj on Instagram. Yeah.
And where else can they find this podcast?
Fox9 YouTube page, anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, all that stuff.
Fox Local as well.
Fox Local, yes, as well. And we appreciate the views, actually, too. We know you guys have been enjoying this podcast, and we appreciate your support. We really do.
Yep, that'll do it for us. Also, check out Vikings postgame tonight. Every Sunday night at 10:35, Vikings analyst Pete Bursich, who calls the game, knows this team inside and out. He gets a lot of info that he doesn't actually always tell us, but he kind of infers it. If you listen to what Pete says, you can kind of put it together if you really pay attention. So please check that out as well. That's every Sunday night, 10:35 on Fox 9. That'll do it for this edition. Your Vikings perfect on the year, heading into the bye at 5-0. Are we doing a bye week show?
God, I hope not.
Well, click and see if there's one here next Sunday night. All right, that'll do it for us. Thanks for watching. Vikings win 23-17 over the New York Jets.